Hello, and welcome to the Ready Your Users workshop, designed for organizations moving from Skype for Business to Microsoft Teams. My name is Debbie Arbini, and I will be guiding you through today's workshop. A quick note, as you see on the slide in front of you, there's a link to the Upgrade Success Kit, aka.ms/upgrade success kit. Go ahead and take a moment and download the kit. It's a zip file, contains lots of good relevant resources, and I'll talk to you about those in just a little bit. But we will be using the Upgrade Planning Workbook, which is one of the resources in that kit. So go ahead and download it now, and then you'll be ready for the workshop. This is the second in a series of 4 workshops. The first one, Plan Your Upgrade, is really the precursor to this one. Plan Your Upgrade really lays the foundation for a successful upgrade experience. It's really about planning the logistics. We talk about things such as who should be on your project team. Let's define your goals, your scope, things like that. Today's session is really around the human element of change, the people, right? Who are the people in your organization that you need to drive a change strategy for? Now, if you're interested in more of the technical workshops, I encourage you to attend the Identify Your Upgrade Approach and or Implement Your Upgrade Approach workshops. Those really go deep on the user experiences, on the different policies and procedures that you can enable for your end users, whether you want to enable Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams together with overlapping capabilities or with select capabilities. So you're welcome to join one or both of those workshops. All of these workshops are offered both live and on demand, so you can choose the right delivery form that works with your schedule. All right, so what are we going to cover today? Today's session, as I mentioned, really focuses on the people side of change. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about some of the factors that inform or influence whether people start using a new technology and what can you do to combat some of those challenges that you might face. We'll take some time to walk through the core value messaging, right? It's the what's in it for me. Right? It's really how can you get users to want to move over to Teams? And then we'll talk about considerations as you build out your awareness training and support strategies. But let's begin by looking at some of the most common influencers to user adoption. First and foremost, having too many choices, right? Now, this isn't an issue typically for, let's say, your operating system, right? You upgrade to Windows 10, great, everyone uses Windows 10. But when it comes to collaboration or communication technologies, there's a lot of tools on the market. There's a lot of tools that don't require admin rights or security testing in your environment. There's a lot of tools we use every single day on our mobile devices, right? To talk to our friends and our family, right? It's called shadow IT and it exists. I think the last statistic I read said about 72 or maybe even higher than that now, percent of users admit to bringing their own communications tool inside the workplace. So how do you fix that, right? There's too many choices. And when you have too many choices, what happens is people in your organization actually become more disconnected than connected to one another because they're all using something different. So we'll talk about that today. It's really about value messaging, right? Because users are going to choose a tool that they feel offers them the most value. And that's really with anything in our lives, right? Why do you select a certain car or a certain restaurant? It's because you find value in that establishment. So, how can you articulate the value of Teams to your end users so that they choose Teams? So, we'll talk about that today. Also, really important to make sure that users have a good first experience. We've all heard the phrase, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So make sure users have a really good first experience with Teams. This is where it is so critical for the technical and user readiness work streams to be working in parallel. They need to be connected at the hip. Yes, they're both working on separate activities, but they need to be aligned. And you can learn more about that in the Plan Your Upgrade workshop, where we talk about the intertwining of those two work streams. And then lastly, make sure users can get the support they need when they need it. If they were to call your help desk today and start asking questions about Teams, is your help desk ready to support them? Maybe yes, maybe no, but make sure your help desk is ready. And not just from a technical troubleshooting perspective. Honestly, the majority of calls that typically come into a help desk around communication or collaboration technologies are more how to. Like, how do I do this? Or this doesn't seem to be working as expected. So make sure your help desk is educated, not just on the troubleshooting piece of it, but on the standard conversational aspects of Teams so that they can have a productive conversation with end users. So, a few tips I want to provide right out of the gate. Make sure you're communicating early. This goes back to the technical and user readiness working in parallel. Don't wait until your technical deployment is complete and clients are deployed and until you're absolutely ready for people to start using Teams. That is one reason why people push back because they haven't had enough time to think through the change and to go learn everything they need to learn before you're asking them to make a switch. So communicate early, bring them along on the ride, tell them what's happening, give them some information that they could go absorb. It really does help reduce some of the pushback. Make sure you're articulating the value of Teams for the end user. I can't tell you how many times I've seen organizations send information out to users that say, hey, we're moving to Teams because it'll save our organization $5 million, or we're moving to Teams because it'll help increase your productivity. Like, when was the last time you wanted to hear you weren't productive enough? Never. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time today articulating the value of Teams for the end user. And then understand not everyone in your organization absorbs information in the same way. So make sure you're accommodating a variety of different learning and awareness styles so that users can really get the information they need in a way that's relevant for them. And then lastly, make sure you have a plan to sustain all of that excitement. I like to call it the roller coaster, right? You go way up, but then you also come way down. What you don't want to do is have people get really excited about Teams. And then you know what? You walk away and you move on to the next project. Yeah, so do they. And they will go find a different solution. So, how can you sustain that excitement? How can you have them go up and start using Teams, but then stay up and keep getting excited about it and really, truly, deeply adopt Teams? Because that's when your organization will start getting a return on your investment. All right, so we are about to jump into the working portion of this workshop. So have your workbook handy, go ahead and open it up. I'm going to come out of my PowerPoint and I'm going to join you in the Word document. So again, if you've downloaded that Upgrade Success Kit, please go ahead and open up the Upgrade Planning Workbook and follow along with me. Now, if you attended the Plan Your Upgrade workshop, you should already have this information. It's not a new workbook. It's the same workbook. All four of our workshops use the same workbook. So you only have to download it once. And what you'll notice is the table of contents is broken out by our upgrade framework, which we talk about in the Plan Your Upgrade class. So you have building your project team, defining your project scope, preparing your technical environment, and then we land for today's workshop, which is prepare your organization for Teams. So today we're going to focus explicitly on this one section. So I invite you to do a control click. It lands you down on page 12. And this is the prepare your organization for Teams, ready your user section. Now the section I've built out as a 4-step process. Super easy to follow, super repeatable. So maybe you're doing this first for a pilot, or maybe you're just doing it for one workload in Teams. You can come back and repeat this for every other change that you have in your organization. So as I talk through this is a simple Word document. Fill it out. Add some notes to the side. These are a simple word table. You can delete the bullet points, add more bullet points, make comments, notes, whatever works for you. The whole point of this workshop is for it to be a working session so that you can glean insights that are going to help you build your user readiness plan. So let's get started by defining your value prop. Now, you've probably heard a great way to do this is to first look at personas and use cases and think through how people might use Teams, right? And to me, I think that's getting a really granular way too fast. It's, if you only focus on how the sales team uses Teams, it's really just one little slice of your entire organization. So I've come up with a different approach, and it's called universal ways of working. It's what I have highlighted there in my Word document. These are core ways of working that every single person in your organization can relate to. And if you can tap into these core ways of working first, And then maybe use personas and use cases as an add-on for specific user groups where it's most relevant. You're going to be golden, and you're really going to be able to drive the value messaging for your organization. So let me take you through these core universal ways of working. And again, take your notes, add your bullet points, whatever you need to do to make it your own. The first one is personal productivity. This is basically the job that every single one of us was hired to do, right? You all applied for a job, you went on the job interview, you got the job because you're here watching this workshop. And then you were given your to-do list, right? It's your personal accountability. It's what your reviews and your raises and bonuses are based on. Everybody cares about that, right? Everyone cares about being able to get their own jobs done. Next step is meetings. We can all attest to sitting in meetings. Right now, you're watching this workshop. I consider that a meeting, right? A training session is a meeting. Work group meetings, sales demos. I mean, you name it. We spend a good portion of our work life sitting in meetings. So everyone can relate to that experience. And then lastly, we have groups and projects. So this could either be your immediate work group, right? Or it could be a cross-team project. So chances are you're watching this because you're part of your upgrade project team or team's rollout project team. So you're part of a cross-team project. Now, the three of these are not mutually exclusive, right? Chances are, as part of your project, you host meetings and then you're assigned some personal accountabilities. So they're all interrelated. The reason I call them out this way is they all have unique characteristics. They all come with their unique set of challenges, and they all also nicely tie to workloads and teams. So if there are workloads you're not going to be enabling right away, you can ignore that pillar and come back to it later on. So groups and projects aligns nicely to teams and channels. Meetings obviously relates to meetings, and personal productivity relates pretty well to chat and calling. So what I want to do, just to give you an idea of how do you take these three ways of working and come up with value statements, let's take a few examples. What I like to do is identify the characteristics, identify the challenges, and then flip the challenges upside down and say, how can teams solve for those challenges? So if I look at personal productivity, let's say that I was writing a sales contract and I needed my manager to review the contract. Think about how that works in Skype for Business today. Right? If she's away, I need to tag her for a status change alert, wait for her to come back online, and then hope that I am online when she comes back online. Then I have to engage in an active chat. I have to upload the file. She has to then download the file, make her changes, and then we follow that entire process in reverse, where now she's trying to get a hold of me to send the document back. That's a lot of work and a lot of time. But in Teams, all I need to do is send her a file. It doesn't matter that she's online or offline, doesn't matter. I send her a chat, I attach the file, which gets stored to my OneDrive. So it's one document version. We don't have to worry about uploading, downloading, anything like that. Teams notifies her. I don't have to do it. Teams notifies her when she gets back online. She makes changes to the document, and then I'm easily able to pull that document down. Think about how much time that saves, how much easier someone's job is. So when you think about what's in it for the end user, what does a typical employee care about? Right? They care about their paycheck, they care about their raises and bonuses and being a happy employee and being able to get their jobs done and get recognized. And they do that by making their jobs easier, simpler, faster, right? Because the more they can get done, the less time they have to be catching up at night, right? They want work-life balance. So think about how different things in teams can help them save time, drive efficiencies, right? You don't want to say increase productivity because that's more something for your, senior executives. They care about increasing productivity. A user cares about saving time and getting their jobs done faster and more efficiently and effectively. Let's take a quick another example of meetings. And I'll use a very specific example of recordings in meetings. So if you think about recordings in Skype for Business, you can record your meeting and then it gets stored onto your local machine. Then it's up to you to figure out, how do I now distribute this recording, which is a massive file that's sitting on my desktop, out to all of my attendees, right? Again, it's a lot of work for you to have to do. But in Teams, when you record your meeting, it automatically gets added to the meeting conversation. So you're chatting with people before, during, after the meeting, the recording just happens to add itself automatically. It gets stored in Microsoft Stream, so you can easily forward it to additional participants. You can choose who has access to it, but if you just want to leave it in the meeting, you don't have to do anything else. All you do is start recording and stop recording. Teams does the rest for you. Again, your meetings are more effective, they're more efficient, they're simpler, faster. All of those are great words that users want to hear about. So think through that. Take time to think through these core ways of working. Think about how they function in Skype for Business today, or maybe you're using a different technology. Think about how it functions in that technology. And then think about what some of the challenges are or pain points and how teams can drive more efficiencies. Now, if you're still not quite sure how to formulate that value messaging, take a look at the user communication templates that are in your Upgrade Success Kit. And I'm going to scroll down here and just show you the first one, which is the initial announcement. In this document, we actually call out, why would I want to use Teams, right? Here's the what's in it for me, right? Simpler, easier, communicate naturally, right? We're all used to communicating on our mobile devices, right? We always like adding memes and GIFs and making it fun. So, right, resume a conversation, send a file when someone's offline, reduce the need to toggle between multiple applications, right? I've seen desktops where your taskbar at the bottom, there's so many applications open, the taskbar is multiple lines. Like that's overload for someone trying to manage all of this. What if you can just streamline that and access everything through Teams? So think about how your business operates today. Think about how people use communication and collaboration technologies, and then think about the challenges and how Teams can help with that. And that honestly is how you come up with value messaging. So that's the high level value messaging. And then if you want to go more deeply on personas and use cases, on page 13, we call out a few examples. I call them people-centric and project-centric, right? So people-centric is more personas, project-centric is more use cases. And I give an example for each one in this Word document. And it's broken out the same way. What are the core characteristics? What are the challenges? What are the requirements for this team to work effectively or this project to really function effectively? And then how can that play out in teams? So I have one both for a project-centric example and a people-centric, the sales team. So again, if you want to go more deeper on personas and use cases, you can use the same formula and leverage the examples that are in the Word document. Okay, so once you've come up with the value messaging, the next thing you want to start assessing is how likely are people to actually change? How likely are they? If I were to turn off Skype for Business, how likely are they to start using Teams? So let's take a look at step 2 of this 4-step process. I'm now in the middle of page 14 of the Word document. And there's 3 questions we're going to go through to be able to assess the user readiness for change. The first one, how many changes are going on within the same time frame? This question is super critical. If you ask nothing else, I think this is probably one of the most important questions you can ask yourself, and work with your project team to understand other things that are going on. Are you upgrading operating systems, maybe moving away from desk phones, not even technology? Are you maybe moving to an open work environment? So you're getting rid of closed door offices. Are you going through a merger, acquisition, internal reorg? All of these changes impact the user mindset and the user mentality and ultimately user productivity. So where it makes sense, try to space these out. If you have a lot of changes happening at once, I understand that's not always feasible, right? You have to run your business and it has to keep moving forward. So I want to give you a few examples of things that you can do. And I'm going to share a good example and a bad example. And because it's more fun, I'm going to start with the bad example. So I worked with an organization once and they did pretty much all of these changes at once. And what they did is they were physically moving offices across town. So on a Friday afternoon, they told everyone, great, Monday morning, don't forget, we're across town in our new offices. So people show up Monday morning to this open work environment, which they were not used to. There was no phone on their desk because they figured, hey, new environment, let's just forego the desk phones and move to a headset. The meeting room devices were new, the operating system was new, like the communication tools, everything was new and it was different. And people freaked out. which, I mean, understandably so, right? They said it's 8 a.m. and I have a meeting at 8:30 and I can't connect to my meeting because I have no idea what to do. Like, how is my computer a phone? I don't understand, right? Because they didn't transition any of that beforehand. They figured we'll just do it all at once. So it was pretty much a nightmare, to put it mildly, and it didn't go well. And it honestly took them about 8 months to try to get people back on board. There was a lot of unhappy employees, a lot of escalations to the help desk, a lot of people that said, I'm just going to work from home. I can't deal with this. Right. So that's not the experience you want. So what can you do if you're thinking and looking at this list and saying, uh-oh, I have all of these and then some. What can I do about it? So I invite you to create a theme for your changes. And I'm going to explain what that is. So now you're going to hear the good story. We worked with another organization just about a year ago, so it was still 2019 at the time, and they had a lot of these same changes going on. They weren't doing them all on the same day. I really don't encourage that, but they were going to have continual changes for several months. So instead of focusing on exactly what was changing, right? Because remember, a technology honestly is a means to an end, right? So instead of focusing on the change itself, they focused on their bigger vision. So their theme was called Innovate 2020. And they said by the year 2020, we want to be the best in breed in our industry. We want to gain market share. We want to grow our business, twofold. We want our stock price to go up because we're all shareholders. So when we win, you win. And so they really sold them on the vision of the company. And they said, but you know what? It takes a village, and we can't do it without every single one of you. They said, whether you work in the mailroom all the way up to the boardroom, everyone plays a critical role, and we can't make this a success without you. And they said, so are you with us? Right? And who in their right mind wanted to raise their hand and say, no, thanks, I'll pass. Right? So they really generated all of this momentum and excitement by this theme. Then they said, great. Now, in order for us to get there, like, we can't run business as usual. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same spot next year. They said we have to make some changes to drive efficiencies in the way we work. That means streamlining some of the tools we use, upgrading to the most current technologies. And they said, we understand change is going to be hard. We're going to be here to support you. And they really made users feel like they were part of a solution versus change just being pushed at them. And it worked. People were so excited. Every few months, they shared a milestone update. Hey, we're 30% to our goal. We're halfway there. We'll keep going. Your guys are doing great. They showcase success stories. But they really kept the momentum going by reverting everything back to the broader vision or their broader theme. So again, take a step up from all the tactical changes. Again, the change is just a means to an end. Focus on the end story. So come up with the theme. It makes it fun, it makes it engaging, and it gives users something to focus on, knowing that there's a reason behind all of these changes, right? Because sometimes people feel like, oh, they're just changing for change's sake, right? So let them know, no, there's a reason they're doing this. And you want them to be part of the solution. So there's a section in the Word document here to create a theme. I know it's optional. Honestly, I encourage you to do it. I think it's a great way to really drive excitement around a change. All right, so question 2 in this section is, what percentage of users fall into each category? So you want to think through, is your organization made up of a lot of early adopters? So, what is your change culture? Do people just go along with the flow? They request it. They always want to be on the latest and greatest technology. Or are they more laggards, slow adopters, people who push back, people that just don't want to change, or think it's always change for change's sake? Now, don't be too, don't spend too much time in this section. I like to use the 80-20 rule, as you see here in my Word document. Think, is 80% of your users early adopters and 20%, basically is the majority, right? Are the majority early adopters and the, remaining few laggards, is it reversed? This question is going to help answer how much awareness and value selling you need to do. So if you have a lot of early adopters, you know what? You probably don't need to go deep on personas and use cases, right? They get it. They like new technology. They're wanting it. They're waiting for it, right? And maybe you can just get away with a few emails. But if you have a lot of laggards, people who push back that just don't get it, you probably want to go deeper on the value messaging, on personas, on use cases, and have an actual awareness strategy, right? It's not just emails. What about posters and demo days and launch events and digital signage and all of this other cool stuff? So again, think through this question because that will really help inform how much or how little action that you need to put into your awareness strategy. Then you want to do the same thing for the next question, which is what percentage of users fall into each competency? So are people pretty self-motivated in your organization? Meaning that if you were to send an email with a link to training, how confident are you that people will actually go watch that training? Or you launch a new technology, you're pretty comfortable, they'll just go figure it out. Or is your organization made up of more hand-holding seekers, right? People that are waiting for the in-person training to come to them, people that are waiting for you to tell them exactly what they need to do, people that are going to pick up the phone and call the help desk the first moment they have a question. Again, think about your organization's culture. As you're probably realizing, this question ties into how much training and support you need to prepare for. Again, if you have pretty self-motivated early adopters, you might be able to get away with an email with a link to training. If you have more laggards or people that need more handholding, really think through the types of awareness and training you want to leverage. Which brings us to step 3. Step 3 is taking all of the information we've talked about so far and identifying the appropriate readiness channels for your organization. And so you can see I have 3 pillars here: awareness, training, and support. Those are the 3 readiness channels. There's lots of options here. I do not recommend you do every single one of these. That is too much, right? Let's make the most of your time as well. But it has to be the right amount, and you can always add to it later on. So I will talk through just a few of these. There's a few I'd like to highlight, and you can see some are underlined in blue. That simply means it's a hyperlink to other documents or other places in the Upgrade Success Kit. So we'll talk through a few, and hopefully that will give you some ideas of what you want to move forward with. So under awareness, we have emails. Emails is a little ubiquitous at this point. I think of emails as any communication. So it could be email, it could be a blog, a newsletter, a Yammer post. It's really where you're taking a blurb of information and doing a one-way push out to your users and organization. So in the Upgrade Success Kit, as I showed you before, we have an entire document of user communications that you can pull from. In that Upgrade Success Kit are also posters, lots of customizable posters. So if you have physical office locations where you like to put up tangible posters as people walk down the hall, you can absolutely use those and customize those to meet your needs. Digital signage. Digital signage is becoming more and more common in organizations. And if you're not familiar with what digital signage is, it's basically those monitors that you see when you walk into a building, in the lobby. Maybe it's the, meeting calendar for the day or the lunch menu for the day. In certain hotels, they have them in their elevators. Sometimes they're in cafeterias. It's really any place you have a digital screen, like a big computer TV screen that has advertisements on it. That is digital signage. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to hire a vendor to create something really fancy. I've done it just using a few PowerPoint slides. You can use the posters if you want to and just put them in a digital format. So there's lots of ways to create digital signage, but really it is an advertisement in a digital format in its simplest definition. I do want to talk about champions for a moment. So champions, if you notice, span across all 3 pillars: awareness, training, and support. Champions are peers of one another that help evangelize teams for you, and they are your biggest advocates. I strongly encourage you, if you haven't already thought about creating a champions program, do it. Because unlike other tools, let's say Excel, where I can be creating pivot tables and spreadsheets all day, all night by myself, office door shut, and I'm just working in a silo. When you're in teams, same with Skype for Business, right? You're always interacting with at least one other person. You're chatting with them, you're calling with them, you're meeting with them. So it makes sense that people help people. So if you have a lot of laggards in your organization, identify some of those early adopters. Because let me tell you something, if let's say Joe in the mail department was a laggard, he just didn't want to use new technology, but I reached out to him in Teams and I said, hey, Joe, do you have a minute? Can I talk to you? and he replies to me in Teams, guess what? He's now starting to use Teams. Right? So lead by example. Champions can be your biggest asset when it comes to adopting new technology. And I'll share a link with you in a little bit. We do have a free champions program at Microsoft that you can sign up for, and all of your champions can sign up for as well. Okay, the last one I'll call out here because I get questions on it quite often is around gamification. You know, everyone asks, like, is there a formal gamification app or tool or anything like that in Teams? And there's nothing like that today. We're exploring what that might look like. However, it doesn't have to be super complicated. Let me give you an example of a customer who I think was way ahead of their time. This is dating back to Link, so, 3 technologies ago, and they created gamification along with a theme. Their theme was called Link Nation. And I actually have a customer now doing Teams Nation. So they kind of stole that idea, borrowed it, if you will. But it was Link Nation. And, a nation is a community of people coming together. And they said, hey, you know what? Join Link Nation. Everybody's doing it. We're going to be giving all these fun challenges to connect with one another. They really made it a fun, interactive game, if you will. And they said, week 1, your challenge for week 1 is to send 3 chat messages to your colleagues. So if you want to go for lunch, instead of walking downstairs, ask them in a chat. If you want to send kudos for a job well done, send it in a chat. If you want to share a file, instead of email, send it in a chat. And it was so super simple. The next week 2, make your next team meeting a link meeting. All right, so even if you're all sitting in a conference room, add link coordinates, join the meeting and app share all of your content. All they wanted to do was get people to get a feel for what the technology was like. And I will be the first to admit, I said to this customer, really? That's it? I'm like, that's not going to work. I'm like, that's all you're doing? And I ate my words because in all of my years at Microsoft, it was the fastest growing adoption I have ever seen of a technology because they kept it so super simple that even the biggest laggards thought, oh, I can do this. Like, yeah, I text on my phone. I can send a chat. That's all I have to do. Perfect. This is easy, right? They made it really easy for those laggards, those like, slow adopters to assimilate into Link. And then at the same point, those people who are a little bit more tech savvy that wanted to take it to the next level, they were able to do that on their own because they felt comfortable knowing the basics. So gamification doesn't have to be complicated. You can use a similar activity like that and get people excited. You can give out badges and gift cards if you want to. Look at the top users and have a leaderboard and all of that. But doesn't have to be that complicated. You can keep it really simple. Okay, let's talk about training. So training, I know some people equate training to adoption. It's part of it, but it's not all there is, as you're realizing. But we understand how important training actually is. So we offer free online training, live and on demand. Every class from understanding the basics all the way through tips and tricks of taking it to the next level. So leverage our training. Why not? It's free, it's there. We also have online articles and videos, so users can really learn in a way that's relevant for them. Now, obviously, if you need something that's really customized or tailored, or you're trying to do kind of white glove in person, desk side training, you can leverage if you have an in-house training team, you can leverage your champions, or we have lots of training partners as well that are happy to connect with you on that front. But I encourage you, take a look at what we have today and then, get started there and then see where you need to take training based on how you answered those questions above. And then lastly, we have support. Support, as I mentioned, is such a critical resource because they are the first line of defense with your end users. It's where users are going to call if they have a question, if they have a problem. So make sure that your help desk, whether they're in-house or outsourced, know what's happening with Teams. They know what workloads are enabled in Teams. They understand what all of your policies are in Teams so that they're able to help users. That allows users to feel like, yeah, okay, I get it. I understand what Teams is. I understand why we have these policies. It's not always about deep troubleshooting. And sometimes it is. So they have to be well-versed both on the troubleshooting side, but also on the conversational aspects of Teams on how to help users get assimilated. And then you can see we have feedback surveys. Stay connected to your end users. Make them feel like they are part of the solution and part of the conversation. Right? One of the biggest reasons people get kind of dissuaded by an organization or their satisfaction is low is because they feel like they're just a little cog in the machine. They don't feel like they're actually a valued employee. So when you send out feedback surveys and you gather feedback, and the important part is you take action on that feedback, that's where users start feeling valued. Do not do a survey if all you're going to do is send out the survey to tick a box and then do nothing with the information. Make sure you have a plan, you send out the survey, you gather feedback, and then you report back like, hey, thanks for filling out the survey. 80% of you said this, 30% said that. Here's what we're going to do to make improvements. It makes users feel like, okay, they're actually listening to me. But there's such a great way to connect and support your users. And again, our Upgrade Success Kit has lots of different feedback survey samples that you can pull from. All right, step 4. Step 4 is simply pulling the plan together, taking all of those pieces and building out your strategy. So for this, I am going to come back over into my PowerPoint deck. But before I do that, I want to call your attention to the resources section on page 16 of this document, because it links to our Champions program, to our training, to more adoption information, such as our toolkit. So definitely take a look at these resources. There's no shortage of resources that can support you through the change. But what I'm going to do now is we're going to come back over into the PowerPoint and we're going to talk about step 4, which is building your upgrade readiness strategy. The core piece of advice that I have here for you is do not work on your strategy in a silo. Connect back with your technical team, connect back with your upgrade project team. Make sure that you're all working in parallel, because what you don't want to have happen is you start crafting communications and sending your communications that are misaligned with what your technical team is enabling and when they're enabling it. Right? And I've seen that happen way too often, where your readiness team sends emails that say, hey, everyone, we're getting ready for Teams and you'll be able to do Teams and channels and chat and calling, and they get everyone really excited and everyone gets training. And then your IT department's like, hold on a second. We're only enabling Teams and channels and we're just enabling it for a pilot group, right? So you've just set missed expectations, right? And I've seen the reverse. I've seen it where your technical team starts lighting up features before you've had a chance to communicate to users. So circle back with your technical team, your overall project upgrade team. Make sure you're all in alignment. What are you all working on? What is the scope of your project? What is the timeline? What is the pilot? All of those logistics we cover in the Plan Your Upgrade class. That's why I think that class is so crucial, because you really want to make sure that everyone is aligned on what you're doing, what is the timeline, what are your milestones, what are your success goals, etc. So as you're working on your plan, again, just circle back, make sure that you're connecting back to make sure that any messaging you're creating is in alignment with what features and functions will be enabled and when. So let's review some of the key points that we talked about today. Make sure you're communicating early. So even if your IT department says, look, it's going to be another 30 days before we're really ready to do anything, communicate, let users know, hey, a month from now, 30 days, 60 days from now, we're going to be enabling Teams, but they can get started. One of our training classes is called Say Hello to Microsoft Teams. And it's not a how-to training class, it's a value prop class. So if you need more help driving the value of Teams, go attend that class. It's a quick 30 minutes on here are core scenarios and let's see how they play out in Teams. That's all it is. Give users a reason to get excited. So this is where the value messaging comes in. Go through that exercise, core attributes, challenges, and value of Teams. Kind of go through that exercise a few times and you'll start really getting the hang of coming up with value messaging. And then where it makes sense, go deeper on some use cases and personas. Maybe you need to do it, maybe you don't, right? Depending on whether you have a lot of early adopters or a lot of laggards. Create a theme. I know I said if you have a lot of changes, create a theme. I've seen organizations do it even if that's the only change they have happening. Because maybe 6 months from now you have another change and you can bundle it under that same theme. So the theme doesn't have to have a year in it. It could just be an ongoing, strategy of where your vision of your organization wants to go. Start with our existing training resources. Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. We have a lot of good content out there, so explore what's there before you automatically assume you have to create something from scratch. And then absolutely look at that champions community. There's the link again. It's also in the Word document. So look at our champions community and really explore who in your organization is really a good candidate to become a champion. If you're not sure, look at the surveys document, that sample surveys document, because I put a survey in there on how to identify your champions. Right? You get people to self-select. So if you're not sure who your early adopters or champions are, ask your users. All right. So today we talked about some of the factors that influence user adoption. We talked about how to build that value messaging, those value messaging statements, and then considerations as you build out your awareness training and support activities. So moving on, start communicating today. In that sample communications document, there are announcements for stakeholders, for your help desk, and for your end users at every stage, whether you're running a pilot, just getting started, upgrading, or post-upgrade. There's lots of different templates to pick from, and just mix and match, right? Take a verbiage from email number 1 and email number 2 and combine them together of whatever works for you. Complete the readiness section of the workbook, and then make sure you're working back with your overall project and technical teams to make sure that your strategy, your messaging, your timing is all in alignment with the overall upgrade project. And then we do encourage you to join us for additional workshops. So if you missed the Plan Your Upgrade, I do encourage you to go back and either join us for a live workshop or look at the on-demand one. Today, you just completed Ready Your Users. And then if you're more interested or also interested in the Identify or Implement Your Upgrade Approach workshops, again, those will cover the different journey, the different paths that you can take to get from Skype to Teams. Right? Think about it. If I'm in Oregon, if I wanted to go to New York City, I could fly, I could take the bus, I can take the train, I could drive, right? There's lots of different ways for me to get there. So Identify Your Upgrade Approach really talks through all of those different paths that you can take. What is the user experience? What are some pros and considerations? Lots of different insights to help you make the right decision for your organization. And then Implement Your Upgrade Approach shows you in your admin portal how to make all of those changes. So, it's a more technical audience, but I would say, as a user readiness manager accountable for driving that, Identify Your Upgrade Approach is also a great workshop for you because it gives you good insight into what the user experience is so that you can articulate that in your communications. And to sign up for those workshops, just go to the aka.ms/Skype2Teams planning link that you see there at the bottom of your screen. And with that, you are done. We have completed the Ready Your End Users workshop. Thank you so much for sticking with me today for this hour. We do hope to see you at another workshop soon. And if you have any questions, I encourage you to join us for the live workshop. So thanks so much for that.